more on Sunday, I think.
Yeah,
But,
we got some today, so maybe it's on your way.
oh, yes, thank you.
Well, I said I was supposed to go to Saskatoon, so the decision was made not to go. Well,
But all is well. You can still feel spring is in the air.
I mean, it's not above zero, but the sidewalks are warm and it's melting. So,
and all our bulbs are starting to come up.
Oh, my tulips are up. So,
and the wild irises, yeah,
squished under the snow. But anyway,
yeah, probably not too helpful for new growth, but yeah.
Which club are you in?
Medicine Hat, Rotary Club of Medicine Hat. We
Okay,
turned
so
100. We turned 100 years in 2018.
Yeah. So I know I would. Sandy is still there?
Oh
Sandy
yes, Sandy Mackay.
Yeah. Say hello for me, please. He's a good friend.
I will do that with pleasure. I think he's still involved at a district level, maybe with the Rotary Foundation, perhaps.
He could be. He and I? Yeah. Haven't talked to him in a long time. But he was, when I was district governor, he's really supportive. So,
Harvey, may I have your phone number, please? Because I want to have a quick chat with you sometime. If you could put it, well, you can just say it loud if you like.
403.
Yeah.
347.
Yeah.
6673.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
What? No, Maria.
One of the things is I'm trying to find mechanical engineers in our district, because we've got a young lady who's second year. Brad, you might be interested to hear this. A second year mechanical engineering young lady from Regensburg in Germany who wants to come to our district and be exposed to some local mechanical engineering setups. So I'm in contact with various people, but looking to Red Deer and Lethbridge in addition to Calgary, so that she's got exposure to some of our other cities as well. Yeah, be fun, hey?
Hey,
we'll wait maybe another 3 minutes here.
I don't see Maria yet.
So it looks like nearing the end of the week on a holiday weekend, it's sort of typical. We don't have as many people participating as we might have expected, but it shouldn't be too surprising. I know Graham and Rick are away, so it's just us. Glad you could join us, Margie, and the other mentors here, Brady, Vitor. Who else have we got online?
Maria's not here yet.
Maria is coming though, isn't she?
Well, I understood. I just sent her a note. She was talking about it yesterday. So
okay.
I think Janie will be joining us. I've just had a 3 o'clock meeting with her about our presentation in Houston. She will join us for sure. But she said that the traffic in Sao Paulo is just unbelievable, because Easter is a huge celebration there and everybody's going away. So she got stuck in a traffic jam. So I don't know if that will be the same case with some of our participants.
So Maria's just told me she's joining us. She may be just taking a bit of time to get on. She has a job, so sometimes she doesn't get home right on time.
Okay, do you know if Rose is joining us, Margie? I haven't heard from her yet.
She hasn't communicated with me either.
Okay. Well, at least it looks like it's 4:05 according to my time. So maybe we'll get started. If some join us later, that's fine. This is primarily a bit of a review and I guess preparation. I know we're going to get a presentation later from Maria on Bolivia agriculture, which I'm excited about. I'll briefly talk about what's coming up next week as well. And then if Ro doesn't show up, Graham and Rick asked me to talk a bit about our ag scholarship. So if she doesn't show up, I'll talk a bit about that. And, Brady might be able to help me out there with that.
When did you see the message from Vitor?
Sorry?
In the chat?
Yeah, Vitor is here. He was on a few minutes ago. So,
okay.
So I'll just try to put it on full screen and get started here, everyone. Well, thank you. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone. This week I was on board to talk about soil conservation, which I spent most of my career on, as you probably gathered, and working as early in my career as a tillage engineer, but also internationally with various development projects in other countries. So this week we started off by talking about the challenges globally with soil and water conservation, and the fact that the principles of soil and water conservation are really universal, that they don't just apply to Canada or Brazil or South America. The principles of leaving crop residue on the land and conserving water and conserving the soil have been pretty well known for more than 100 years. But I did focus because, you know, during the last 5 weeks, you've seen some very impressive presentations from our Canadian experts on technology and cropping systems and fertilizer use and irrigation and so on, making it look like it's very easy and productive. But it hasn't always been that way. And so I tried to make the point of showing what things were like in the early years before we had this technology and some of the challenges that we faced with drought and soil conservation. And that led to, I think, changes in government policy, that the soil degradation became so severe that government policy changed in the 80s. And the quiet revolution, I call it, on conservation tillage, which took probably 40 or 50 years and now 75% of our acreage, particularly on the prairies, are soil conservation. But one of the key points I wanted to make this week with both presentations on soil conservation was the key linkages of soil quality and carbon to climate change that I could never imagine when I was growing up on a dryland farm here in Southern Alberta that I'd be involved in the negotiations of climate change and getting credit for carbon sinks. So I think I tried to emphasize how exciting that was. Much has been written, and I haven't lived through the dirty 30s, but you know, I did hear about it from my parents and grandparents, and so the soil degradation globally isn't anything new, and there's been many textbooks written about the degradation globally. Some of the civilizations, particularly in Europe and Greece and other countries in Europe, were lost because they didn't manage their soil properly. So there's been many textbooks written, some of them very critical of government policy. Some of the recent ones that I emphasized earlier this week was the book called Dirt, the Erosion of Civilization, written by a geographer from Washington State University, where he really took the world to task for its abuse of the land. And the other one that affected my career was The Soil at Risk, written by a committee headed by Senator Herb Sparrow in 1983, and that really changed government policy in Canada. And then I was involved, as I mentioned earlier, in putting together some of the history of how all this happened, so it's well documented for future generations. And the landscapes have really changed dramatically in my lifetime. I think one of the key points I wanted to emphasize both yesterday and on Monday was the importance of carbon, but also the importance of the soil root zone. You know, we talk about know your roots, whether that's in terms of your own heritage, but it's really important from a soils perspective, because a lot of people don't realize that there's nearly as much biomass below ground as there is above ground. And if you take care of your soils, you know, that soil root system can use the moisture and nutrients through a 1.5 meter depth. So I really wanted to emphasize that it's not just above ground that we're concerned about, and the real valuable organic matter is that root system below ground in terms of carbon, as well as the moisture. So you know, we can store up to 150 millimeters of water in that root zone. And then on yesterday, we spoke about climate change and gave some examples of how it's It's obviously real to all of us. We're experiencing it in real time because our climate is more and more variable. Rainfall now is almost 25 millimeters less in Southern Alberta than it was just 15 years ago. And the growing season is actually 5 or 6 days longer, and the temperature is nearly 2 degrees warmer than it was 20 years ago. So we are experiencing it, and it's obviously going to impact agricultural production. So I tried to emphasize again, because of the importance of our long-term research with the federal government, and we've been very fortunate here in Lethbridge to have some historical crop rotations that help document the impact of cropping systems over the last 115 years. And it's been a challenge to maintain some of these long-term rotations because of pressures on funding. It's not a priority for typical governments because they're only in power for 5 or 6 years. So it takes considerable effort by our scientists to convince the policymakers to protect some of these resources. And I think I emphasized or tried to stress how important carbon sequestration was to help offset the other emissions in agriculture, particularly from our livestock sector, methane, and also nitrous oxide from our fertilization. That if we can offset some of that by carbon sinks, that we're putting carbon back into the soil, that helps reduce the pressure on our livestock sector. But we still have a lot of challenges to go on. And we have a number of scientists working on feeding efficiencies for our livestock, particularly our dairy industry as well. But since 1991, Canada has been sequestering at least 8 million tons of CO2 annually. And I think it's up to 10 million tons now, whereas before 1991, we were emitting 5 to 6 tons of CO2 annually. So again, with the adoption of conservation tillage and reducing erosion, or reducing summer fallow, we're a net sink now. And we're the only country in the world that has been able to document that and get credit for that. But we've learned a lot from the mistakes we've made over the years, and we have some future challenges and opportunities to continue supporting our scientists to make sure we can deal with the future challenges coming down the road. So I guess I just wanted to open it up now. I know there's not too many of you that were here this week. I know Brady was having exams yesterday, but I'm just wondering, I know Thomas seems to be quite interested in this subject, but I'm just wondering if any of you think a little differently after this week about the soil. Do you have a different perspective on climate change and some of the challenges in your country, or any other comments from what you learned this week? Brady?
Yeah, for me, I haven't had a chance to listen to yesterday's presentation yet. I did not see that on YouTube yet, but from the first one and just from your recap, I guess for me, who's going to be hopefully starting a career in farming, the power of carbon capture that you said with no tillage and how that's changed since the early 90s, and the importance of continuing to try to be better and better with that in order to help offset in my local community having a lot of livestock operations, and the importance that it might be for a crop farmer that such as myself to focus on helping your neighbor that way, but also allowing both to succeed through conservation tillage or using appropriate crops in appropriate rotations. So that was some of my takeaways, mostly from the Monday seminar.
Good, thank you, Brady. Had you heard about carbon sinks before?
I have, yes. I looked at that. One of my courses this term was looking at plant bioproducts and how different crops can be used for a bioproduct, but also their effect on carbon sequestration. And it's a lot left for me to learn about it, but I do find it quite an interesting topic, as it's going to become more and more important, I think, for my generation.
That's great. Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
One of the things that I was talking with Harvey earlier is it's interesting how Canada is in front of us, like in Brazil, about the carbon emissions in agriculture, like this kind of subject, like the carbon footprint on agriculture. Here in Brazil, for us, like here in the university, it's like it's a new subject. That's a new kind of thing that we are learning here. And in Canada, it's not. You are many years in front of us.
Yeah, well, we found that throughout our negotiations on Kyoto Vitors, you don't have to apologize for that because many countries haven't really monitored their soil carbon levels, and again, as I mentioned yesterday, Brazil and other countries were not particularly enthusiastic about being challenged on their carbon sequestration because there was some deforestation going on, and a lot of countries are quite sensitive about because deforestation, as you can well imagine, is emitting a lot of greenhouse gases, and especially fires. People need to feed themselves, and in China particularly, they were opening up land because in China they want to be self-sufficient in every province. They don't think about just being self-sufficient in the key areas. They want every province to be self-sufficient, so they're breaking up marginal land and grassland unnecessarily, deforesting land. But now China is planting billions of trees every year, believe it or not. So things are changing. But I have to say, I was in Brazil early on in my career, but the farmers that were adopting conservation tillage, they reminded me so much of the Canadian farmers, because the ones that have found the benefits in terms of soil organic matter, the first thing, the farmer that I stayed on, I think I mentioned to you, the first thing he did when I arrived at his farm was take me out, pull out a shovel, and show me all the earthworms on his no-till soybean field. And he was so proud of that to show me all his earthworms, because I guess he had read some of our publications in Canada. He says, well, we have them here too in Brazil. So that was encouraging to see. But I was still amazed at how much yield they could get in Brazil, again, because of the rainfall. And they didn't have the deep soils that we have, but they were getting the benefits of no-till just because they were leaving so much crop residue on the surface and conserving the water and not having any erosion. But I was amazed when some of the farmers told me how many tractor rollovers they'd have because they're farming on 20% slopes, and it can be pretty dangerous, farming on those steep slopes. But yeah, no, I think it'll come, Vitor. I don't think you have to apologize over that. But as I tried to mention, it takes years. And fortunately, this technology is transferable. Like, I think there's enough expertise globally now that people can predict, again, with the help of remote sensing. And as long as there's good records, of the cropping systems in whatever country we're in, we can predict pretty accurately now how much biomass is staying on the land, how much is removed. And so we can do some pretty good environmental assessment of this carbon sequestration potential. And I think, Brazil and other South American countries have considerable potential in that regard. Any final questions or comments?
Yes,
Hi,
for
Maria.
me,
Oh, there you are. Welcome, Maria.
hi, sorry for being late. Okay, for me, it was interesting to watch that. Like, I have saved the caption of the balance of the soil, organic, and carbon. It was pretty interesting because I didn't know about this kind of balance. And I definitely can see different than before the soil. And I am impressed of what is Canada trying to do with the farmers. And I was reading the challenge or and opportunities. And I think the challenge is to educate people or trying to change their mind uh, with this kind of systems like agroforestry, or maybe taking more care about the soil to have a better soil in 10 years, you know, because the people want to have the product right now. And I admire your work and your books. I am wishing to read about, because I like a lot what you have been doing. And it's science, you know, it's not like only words. It's science and have have like chemics and a lot. I really like it. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind remarks, Maria. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, you know, when we first started this work, you can be sure that many of our farmers didn't appreciate organic matter as much as they do now. But it's amazing to me how passionate many of our conservation farmers, when they've seen the benefits firsthand, you know, in terms of drought proofing their soils and improving the humus and organic matter content. And they can take a lot more pride in that. And what you're going to hear about next week, you know, is how many farmers are using the Canada brand, you know, or basically because we can document now that, you know, our soil carbon levels are not going down. Everybody in the world thinks that if you're farming, you know, you're mining organic matter. That's not true at all. And I think if we can document that, you know, with labeling on our food products, that our carbon footprint is very low with producing barley for malting or producing our crops, and we're not depleting our soils, you know, that means to producers, a lot of people, as you know, will spend 3 times as much money on organic food if they think that it's being produced with a small environmental or carbon footprint. And so now so many of our farmers that have, there's 3 generations now of no-till. So many of them are really taking advantage of this in their marketing ability. So you're going to hear a bit about that next week as well. Okay, I think we'll move on here since we're anxious to hear what you have to say, Maria, in a few minutes about agriculture in Bolivia. But before doing that, I think I have 1 or 2. Yeah, just getting on to what this is a very busy and crazy slide. But Mike Greer, who's a Rotarian in our club, Lethbridge East as well, he was a former vice president of a grain processing company here in Lethbridge and the prairies for many years for processing wheat primarily, but also other crops. So we asked Mike to talk about the value added portion of agriculture, and he got some help from the local economic office and downtown in Southern Alberta, and they recently produced this map, which is summarizing Canada's premier food corridor in when you say Canada's premier, this is just Southern Alberta. These are all the businesses and the research support in this lower quadrant and all of the other companies that help support agriculture for marketing, you know, our oilseed crops or cereal crops and related byproducts, and biofuels, and so on. So he'll be talking about some aspects of this, but I think it's quite interesting. And one of the things that he may be talking about, the Lethbridge has the highest percentage of PhDs of any city under 500,000 in Canada, which is interesting in itself, something that I wasn't aware of. Again, because of the support, not just our university, but our research centers. But they also the marketing ask. Some of these companies I had never heard of myself, but we're going to be talking about potatoes and oil seeds. So Mike Greer is going to be discussing some of this next week on the branding. Like, I don't know if your countries have a brand. Like when I think of Brazil, for example, I think of coffee, I think of chocolate, I think of sugar cane, Some degree I consider corn, and the same with, and then Argentina, I think about beef, and Colombia, I think about coffee, and so on. So when I think about brands, Canada, Canada's brand, maybe you think about moose. I'm not sure if you think about moose or deer or the beaver, or maple syrup probably is one of the few foods that people around the world think about Canada. So this is what we're going to be talking about, how we can emphasize the Canada brand. Everybody knows the maple leaf and so on, the maple trees, and probably the best known food in Canada may be maple syrup, but Mike Greer next week is going to be talking about some of the other potential brands. But I think, again, that's why, you want to develop an international reputation for food safety and security. So we're always looking at the brand. Tim Hortons probably is another example in Canada. Tim Hortons coffee. Tim Horton was a famous hockey player that many of you, he died before many of you were born. He played hockey for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but then he created a fast food operation called Tim Hortons, and they become one of the largest North American coffee places as well. So that's probably a Canadian brand as well. But since Ro isn't joining us today, at least I don't see her there yet, we usually have a short presentation on Rotary. And I know you're very tired of hearing me this week, but Rick and Graham asked if I'd say a few words about our Ag Scholarship. And I'm happy that Fran is here as well, and Brady, since he was one of last year's recipients of this $10,000 agricultural scholarship. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to describe how this started, and it's growing into be our flagship event, our signature event of our Rotary Club. Our Rotary Club, I don't know, are we 30 members yet, Fran, or 25 or 30 members? So we're a pretty small club in Lethbridge, but half of our club has a strong agricultural background. Either we grew up on the farm, or we work in the agricultural industry, or we're retired agricultural scientists. But many of us have relatives that are in agriculture or farming. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we were looking for a new project for our club. And the economy in Alberta was suffering because there was so much emphasis on the oil industry, oil and gas industry. But Lethbridge, for whatever reason, the house prices were staying up, the economy was still thriving. And we realized it's because of our thriving agriculture industry. But it doesn't get a lot of publicity in the media, the television, newspapers, radio. There's very little focus typically on agriculture. And so our Rotary Club thought maybe we should consider offering a scholarship for agriculture in our club if we can get support from private industry. So we started out by developing a proposal for basically recognizing undergraduate ag students that were attending local college. They had to be from Southern Alberta, but they could attend any university anywhere in the world, for that matter. But they had to be from Southern Alberta because our sponsors for the scholarship were the businesses, the agricultural businesses in Southern Alberta. So we decided we'd offer one $10,000 scholarship 4 years ago, not knowing if we were going to get any applicants, not knowing if we were going to raise any money from industry, but we thought it was worthwhile since it seemed like a worthy endeavor to help promote agriculture in Southern Alberta. So that first year, it was a bit of a challenge, and we had a partner with the Lethbridge District Exhibition, which have a number of agricultural shows throughout the year, and we worked with the Lethbridge District Exhibition for sponsoring students to go to district farm machinery shows and other events across the country. So they agreed to be our partner the first year, but we were able to get, several other sponsors to help support the scholarship. And we had a banquet that first year of, I think 200 participants that were willing to pay $125 a plate to attend our scholarship banquet. And so we were fortunate to have enough money to fund our first year scholarship we had, I think, 10 or 12 applicants, and we screened it down to 4 applicants for interviews. And so it's a fairly rigorous process. I've sat on the district scholarship committees for Rotary as well, for peace fellowships and our global grants program. So I had a little experience in working on this, and obviously I've had lots of experience interviewing scientists and students during my career. So I was in charge of the interview process. But we had an outstanding candidate that first year. In fact, any one of the 4 candidates that we interviewed would have qualified. They did very well, but we had a very good student that we awarded the scholarship to. And so we've got a lot of publicity that first year, and she helped us out promoting it in the subsequent year. So the second year, we were able to raise $20,000. So we offered 2 $10,000 scholarships. And then last year with COVID, despite COVID, we had an auction and a 50-50 draw. We weren't able to have a banquet. We had no funds from the banquet, so we just had to rely on donations from sponsors. But we had enough to award 2 scholarships again last year, and Brady was one of them. So congratulations, Brady, for that. But then this year, again, with a COVID year, and fortunate we were able to have a banquet, but we had enough funds this year to award 3 scholarships. And so you can see the 3 winners standing there. You can see I'm the little one on the right there, the short one. You know, most of our scholars now seem to grow very fast, so it must be something in the food or water. You know, Brady's pretty big as well, but I think Adam Fast, he's doing a master's degree at University of Alberta where Brady's at. He's 6'7", so it's not that I'm that small. He's just very tall. But anyway, so we had 4 this year, or 3 this year, 2 last year, 2 the second year, and 1 the first year. So this is our 4th year, and we're very proud. And we had the people speak to our club a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Fran, and they just did a masterful job of impressing our club of why they were worthy recipients for this scholarship and helping advocate for agriculture and help with their career in the future as well. So I really wanted to emphasize that. Any questions about that? So agriculture in Bolivia. Maria, you're on. Like I did a bit of a search, and obviously, you know, I didn't find all the details about Bolivia, but it's amazing. The first picture that came up when I did a search of agriculture in Bolivia, I get this beautiful picture of these llamas and the elevation. I know Bolivia is high elevation. Any people that I've talked to that have been to Bolivia, they talk about being somewhat sick because of the elevations, and there's a famous roadway as well in Bolivia that you might be able to tell us about. It's called the most dangerous road in the world. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that. But I will turn the program over to you, Maria. I'll get rid of my screen here. Can you turn your mic on? There you go.
Okay, good afternoon all. Well, that picture is like the symbol of Bolivia, but this animal only grew up or developed in the occidental part. So I will share my screen. We can start. And this photo is sorry, I'm going to shut up my docs, please. Sorry, that was my docs. Okay, I'm going to share. You can see my screen?
Yes, yeah, good.
Okay, good afternoon or good night all. I'm Maria Emilia Bustamante. I'm the presenter of Bolivia. Bolivia, the heart of South America. As you can see in the picture, Bolivia is here in the color of red, green, and yellow. It's far away from Canada. And why is the heart of South America? Because Bolivia is in the middle of all the countries. So Bolivia is a plurinational state. Why? Because it's in the middle of all countries. For that reason, we have a lot of influence of different indigenous people. And as you can see in the picture, we have around 36 groups of indigenous people, and they are always participation in the programs or in the economy, or maybe some of them has in the governation, or the has a long way to go in education to protect the indigenous people and apply the social participation. Bolivia has two capitals. One is La Paz and the other one is Sucre or Chuquisaca. This is because one power of the governation, it's in La Paz, where you can see Quechua. And the other one is down there where you can see Guarani, or yellow color. And it has a population of about 10.1 million habitats according to the last census. And the territory of Bolivia divides in 3 zones. You can see some indigenous people, like the Oriental people and the Occidental people. So the territory is divided into 3 zones. These 3 zones, it's well marked that we can only plant some kinds of crops. We have 3 zones, like it's Altiplano, Llanos or Valles, and the Amazonia. Altiplano, we have crops like potato, high altitude corn, broad bean, tarwi, millet, wheat, grain, barley. We have quinoa and cañuwa and grasses. Here we can plant the crops that are like tuberculose, and this is because the altitude of the sun and the soil. The soil here, it is not have the ability to have like the nutrients needs to a different kind of crops. In the valles and yungas, that is in the middle, we have more fruits like grape, bananas, orange, apple, sunflowers, and cotton. This part is known like it has like a temperature around 50 and 21 degrees. So we can plant all kinds of fruits. And the third territory or zone in Bolivia is plains and Amazon. Here we can plant all about cereals. We can plant sesame, rice, sugar cane. And in the picture you can see that we could cultivate cacao, like coffee. We can plant sugar cane, and like I said, we can plant a lot of rice and sugar. So agriculture in my department, Santa Cruz, I have a video. It is without sound, but you can see how some farmers plant their crops. This is a developed farm. The region, it's called Chiquitania. This part of Santa Cruz has a lot of plains and you can plant whatever you want. Here they are plant, I think, soy and sorghum. That's all. Sorry. My experience in agriculture corn in committee. My farm is called Yatiwiwa. It is because the native peoples, the meaning of the native people of Yatiwiwa is the place where the water flows, or the place where the water produce. You can see my mom, my stepfather, and my family, and I am teaching Guarani. This is the indigenous people that works in my farm. Here you can see a map that is the Santa Cruz, and you have three like they are not states, but they are like municipios, like they are inside of an state. And the other map is the territory of my land. My land has, or my family's farm has 2,070 hectares, but for the territory, we only can crop a little portion of the land. It's of which very few are arable because it is between the mountains. As you can see, there are a lot of mountains, and it is a territory very difficult to cultivate. My farm is located in a zone that is called Chaco, and this zone has very difficult climb because it have extreme temperatures. You have 6 months of a lot of high temperatures around 40 degrees or 45 degrees, and you have 6 months of low temperatures. These temperatures, low temperatures, can go around 4 and 10 degrees. This is my land. My land, we haven't cultivate around 10 years ago. The last year we start to cultivate, so we have to clean the land. And in this video, you can see how the land was. You have a lot of, they are not trees. They are like, we call here tusca. It's a weed. And there is a part there was a part in my land that it was eroded. They are like cárcavas, but they are already exceeding 1.75 centimeters. So we have to we have to restoring this land to use it. Here is another video of how you can see how was my land. I always told to you that in Bolivia, there is a lot of trees and you can have a plain area to cultivate. Oh, it is a little bit difficult to cultivate. So we started cleaning the field. First, we do manually because we didn't have the machinery. In the zone that is my land, only a few people has the machinery to cultivate like with the technology. So that neighbor borrowed us the machinery to continue cleaning the land. So here we have a bonfires to clean the tusca or the wheat. And then we can actually use machinery to crop all. That is all the land. The machinery was Macy Ferguson. That was the mark of the machinery. And later we had to reseal with matracas. Later of using this to cultivate. You can see the machinery is very, very little as comparing the machinery that you show us in the videos. And this here is the matracas. So we have to continue cultivate with this after we pass with the machine, with this machinery. And it was a little bit difficult, but we do it. This is a map of my land. We cultivate what is in the square red, around 16 hectares of corn, because there is a unique place you can actually cultivate for the mountains that I told. In the video, you can see that we cleaned all the field, and then with the months we can actually see our corn grow. This is how we irrigate the land. We use a tractor and a tank of water because we don't have a system in plan, but we want to implement a system. You can see here. The tractor has the water and we stop like in one part and we just throwing water in the regions that it's more, the regions that needs more water. So now this is our corn right now. You can see it's very tall and we are happy because we cultivate around February and we actually can have some rain, but the people who cultivate around December, their corn isn't like that kind of tall because they don't catch the water or the rain to irrigate their land. We have a rain gauge to know in millimeters how the rain to collect the information of how do you say, to collect the, when it rains, we want to know how much millimeters of water rain. So this tool help us to know and information and to control or to know how is the rain affect our culture. So in my land, it's like, it's pretty big, and we have the challenge to take care of our culture from animals. There are a lot of animals because my land, it wasn't have human activities or at all. We have like endemic animals like tiger. Well, they are not tiger, they are panthers. We have porks. We have monkeys, and they always trying to get our corn. So we are implementing an electric fence for the endemic animals. That, like I said, we are just in the last month, we do it. This is a photo. And another part of my land, we have poultry farm. We raise the chickens to sell the eggs. The species of these chickens are Isa Brown and Loma Brown. But we can see that the best species, it was Isa Brown, because they are big and they develop better in our sun. You can see. Yes. This is my family. We have a great relationship with the people that we work, because in my land, in the limits, we have a lot of communities, indigenous communities, and we try to have a good relationship, because they can steal our trees, or they can steal our cultives, and we don't want to have a bad relationship with them. So in the first photo, we have the person who is responsible of the cultive. We learn a lot about their knowledge, and that's why I care about social participation, because he lived in the sun a lot of years, and he teach us how to do some things. The second photo is my stepfather. We have one horse here, and the second photo, we actually didn't have a tractor, so we have a honky, I think, a honky, and with that we feed the cows that we have. We have one now. We only have around 15 cows, because we can feed them all, because we don't have the necessary corn, you know. And the fourth photo, it's me in a part of my land. You can see there's a lot of trees. Next photo, it's my family of Cochabamba. And the other photo, it's my 4 dogs that love being out there. They are like the security of my land, and they are doing some they do some funny things around there. That's all I can say. I'm open to listen your questions. I know I don't know really about agriculture, but I know a lot of environmental stuff. I am learning agriculture with you guys, and that's all. Thank you.
Oh, gracias, Maria. Excellent job. Your English is so good. We're so proud of you. So I think we all learned a great deal there. So thank you so much for that. Gives us a better appreciation, I think, for the elevation. So good job. I do have one question. Like, do you have any idea what the annual precipitation is in the primary agricultural areas? Like, I know you have a rain gauge there, and most of our farmers have similar rain gauges in Alberta as well. But I was just wondering, if you can you grow 2 crops a year, or is the precipitation insufficient for 2 crops, or can you just grow 1 crop a year? Do you have any idea what the annual precipitation is during your growing season?
Yes, I actually have a agricultural calendar where you can actually cultivate. I do my thesis about my land, so I collect that kind of information. So let me, yes, here is. But in that zone of my land, the precipitation is very low, because it is a part of Bolivia that you don't have water. Like, it is pretty difficult to have water. Okay, I will share screen so you can see here. This is like this diagram teach us like the precipitation, like actual precipitation and precipitation that they calculate.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Yeah, so 40, 50 millimeters per month, I guess it looks like.
Yeah, and you have two kind of periods where it's where there isn't rain at all, and
very,
it's
very dry in June, July, and August.
yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Any questions for Maria? I guess
Maria, I very much enjoyed your presentation. It's I don't have a question, but mine is it was interesting for me to learn about the 3 different zones that you talked about and the difference of crops that were able to be planted. That was something I didn't know about Bolivia before your presentation, and I'm glad I got to learn that. So thank you and well done.
I think it's the altitude that I'm amazed, because I think anything that I've read, most of the people are living at 2,000 to 3,000 meters, which is the reason why they have, high altitude sickness in many cases. They're suffering from oxygen lack.
Yeah,
so that's right.
the occidental part of Bolivia has very high altitude, around, I think, 6,000, around, I don't know. And my city have 3,020 meters, and it's pretty difficult to cultivate here for that kind of characteristic of the territory. So we have many challenges to deal. And like I said, I am learning a lot of technology, and I would like to implement that here,
Very good. Question from Harvey.
Great presentation, Maria. Really enjoyed learning. Question, you showed the picture of the baby chicks. You raised those chicks for eggs to get and then do you buy the baby chicks, or do you keep your own eggs? You buy them?
Yes, we actually buy them because it was our first baby chicks we don't know if we are going to keep one egg to have another generation, but we can actually try to do that. I didn't know about with that kind of chicks, you can actually stay with an egg and raise another chicken.
So then how many chickens do you have that lay eggs?
Now we have around 100, no, let me see, 100, like 1,000, I think.
Okay.
I am nervous, so let me
I love the livestock, so thank you for that. Wonderful, thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask Maria, where do you sell your eggs to? It's Fran, and excellent presentation. Thank you.
I said we actually are in 1 week. We are going to have our first eggs, but we plan to sell in Camiri. Camiri is a population or a city near to our land, and Camiri received eggs from Argentina.
Oh,
Yeah. So maybe we can change that, and maybe the people in Bolivia consume what Bolivian people can offer. So that's the plan.
okay. Also, is there very much beef raised in Bolivia?
Yeah. We have a lot of like, you mean like cows that you can, yeah, we have, but this is in another department of Bolivia that is called Beni. In Beni, you have like, they are not farmers, they only raise cows to sell, and I have a friend who have around, let me think, I think like 5,000 of raised beef, but this is like too little. There exists a lot of farmers or people, I don't know, they are not farmers, but they are agropecuarios that have around 10,000, and that's a lot. That is in Beni.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks again, Maria, for doing such a fine job. Since we're coming up to Easter, it's nice to end your presentation on talking about eggs, because one of the traditions around Easter is coloring eggs. So that's very traditional. So thanks again for that. We really enjoyed that. And I want to thank you, Brad, for helping us for the tech stuff again today. And I really hope all of you have a great Easter weekend. I think next week, I hope it'll be Argentina, because I think we just have Argentina and Chile left for our last week. So we'll see, but I don't have the specific agenda, but look forward to next week being our last week for session. So thanks again, everyone, for your participation. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all for listening to me and
Thanks, Brad.
understanding.
Good.
Have a good weekend. Great presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing
Everybody.
presentation.
Thanks, Maria. Okay. We leave.